Well, welcome. We're live on the Harrison Wilder channel, where my one goal is to encourage you as you move forward in your purpose. Come on now, listen, if you're a person of vision, you're someone who wants to make a positive impact in the world, then you are in the right place. Just put your shoulders back, give yourself a little tap, and say, I am a world changer. I know you're the type of person who doesn't back down when things get challenging, who fails forward, who keeps running until you get the prize. Remind yourself who you are tonight. Just say it out loud for everybody to hear it. Say, I am an overcomer. I read today that Winston Churchill said that success is moving from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Somebody say, I'm excited. I'm on my way. I'm not backing down. I don't have a loss of enthusiasm. Come on, I'm moving forward. In this show, I know I like to do things a little bit different. Even though I can't see you or hear you, I'm still going to ask you to participate by saying things aloud and typing in the comments. Why do I do that? Because studies have shown that if you open your mouth and participate, then you're like 1,000 times more likely to retain the information I'm sharing with you. So, how many of you want to walk away from this video with new insights, new revelation to guide you? Just raise up your hand and say, that's me. Now, there is nothing that can be more paralyzing and set you back from moving forward toward your purpose more than the feeling of being overwhelmed. And yes, overwhelm is just a feeling. How do you know it's a feeling, Harrison? Well, because feelings are fleeting and feelings are irrational. I mean, that's not to discount feelings for their importance. They have a role to play, but they change from moment to moment, sometimes for no apparent reason. And overwhelm is like that. You can feel overwhelmed one day, and then the next day, nothing changes about your workload, nothing changes about your deadlines, and you don't feel it anymore. And yet the feeling can leave you stuck, and you can get caught up in the emotion of overwhelm and stop making any progress at all. But thankfully, overwhelm doesn't have to control you, and you can instantly break its power over your life. Who wants to know the secret to dealing with overwhelm? So that every time it rears its head, you know exactly what to do to break its power and keep moving forward. If that's you, just put it in the chat and say, tell me how. Tell me how. When I was in my early 20s, I was burning the candle at both ends. And I don't know that there's necessarily anything wrong with that, right? When you're single and you don't have kids and plenty of energy, why not pull yourself into your passions? Why not run hard? So I was working a full-time job as an executive assistant, going to school full-time, leading worship for 4 events every week, and then running an inner city outreach we did on Saturday at 2 locations in Washington, D.C. So one day I was tired. I mean, not only that, but I was falling behind. I wasn't studying like I was supposed to. People in the ministry were waiting on me for things. My boss was wondering where I was all the time. I was so used to being the one who was on top of everything, but I started to feel like I was letting people down. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Like you wake up one day and suddenly you feel in over your head. You were juggling everything just fine yesterday, but now you're not sure that you can continue to manage, and you feel like you're starting to drop some of the balls. And that's usually the time when other people start to like turn up the heat on you, right? They like to remind you of your obligations, what they need from you. I mean, as if you're not already obsessing about it, but they kind of fan the flame of that emotion inside of you. And before long, it's burning white hot. And there it is. You're overwhelmed. Well, I tried to hold it back for as long as I could. And finally, one day I was praying and I got real with God. I said, God, I can't do all of this. You've got to take something off my plate. And honestly, I started to feel a little bit better. I mean, I just turned it over to God. God was going to fix it. But then God did something completely unexpected. Have you ever asked God to intervene in your situation and then got a completely different response than you wanted? I mean, they say God acts in mysterious ways, which I think is just code for God doesn't always do what we think he should do all the time. Well, that was the case here. And as soon as the words left my mouth, God, I can't do this anymore, I felt an impression so strong in my heart. And God spoke back and said rather firmly, is this it? Is this all the impact you're going to have? Have you reached your limit? And that was a hard pill to swallow because I knew the answer clearly. No, I've always dreamed of impacting the nations. I knew I was becoming a person who was supposed to help shape my generation. I had books to write, messages to preach, people to inspire. I hadn't done hardly any of it. And here was God asking me if I was done. Of course I wasn't done, but I just felt so overwhelmed. And then God asked me a follow-up question. And this is a question that he's asked me at several pivotal moments of my life since that moment when he said, son, what do you want? And it always catches me off guard when he asks me that because I'm like, God, you're all knowing. You have a great master plan. I mean, you're God. What does it matter what I want? How many of you feel like that? Like your desires shouldn't be front and center when making big decisions. Like certainly God knows better. And aren't we supposed to put him and other people before ourselves anyway? But God asks you, like me, what do you want? And in that question lies the first key to beating overwhelm, which is this. You've got to take responsibility for your life and your choices. You've got to take responsibility for your life and your choices. There's a reason why God asks me what I want and what I think at pivotal moments in my life. He knows how he created me. He knows that if I'm not bought in, if my choices are not aligned with my own internal desires, then I won't be able to stand through the difficulty. I'll crumble under pressure. On the other hand, if my choices are aligned with the desires and passions in my heart, then I have an endless supply of energy and creativity to overcome any challenge in my way. Here's what God was saying through his questions while I was whining about my feelings. He was realigning my choices with my own internal desires. And there was a huge lesson in that many times when you feel overwhelmed, you've simply lost touch with what you really want. And it's time to do some soul searching and remind yourself why you took on this responsibility in the first place. What do you really want? Sometimes the answer to that question will cause you to pivot and move in a new direction. But sometimes it's simply a reminder that this responsibility is what you wanted and what you still want. And just that awareness can send overwhelm away and open up new levels of resolve and energy and creativity toward your work. For months, when I was dating Eileen, I begged and pleaded with God. Is she the one? Are we supposed to spend our lives together? No answer. How frustrating is it when God won't give you a straight answer? Finally, I was driving down Massachusetts Avenue in Washington, D.C. one day, and God put a prompting in my heart. Son, what do you think about her? Ugh, here we go again with the, what do you want? So frustrating. But God was like, seriously, I've put my wisdom in you. I've given you discernment. What do you think about her? Right then and there, I knew what I wanted. I wanted her. I loved her. I loved her heart and passion for God. I loved her vision for the future. And after almost 20 years of being married together, through the highs and lows of our relationship, do you know whose opinion about whether I made the right choice has mattered the most? It wasn't what my friends thought. It wasn't what my pastors thought. I know this sounds crazy, but it wasn't even what God thought. I like to think it was him that put the desire in me and continues to put the desire in me. But the one conviction that holds our marriage together through everything, this is what we want. This is what I want. I am responsible for my choices. I am responsible for my life. And I want my wife. I want my family. I want the life that we have together. Listen, if your life ever gets overwhelming, remember the choices that got you here and remind yourself that this is the life you wanted. This is the career you chose. This is the path you wanted to take more than anything. And just that awareness can stop overwhelm in its tracks and bring a new energy to your life. Of course, sometimes you may ask yourself, what do you want? And you find that you've gotten off course. Your source of overwhelm is that what you're doing is no longer connected to your passion. Your heart isn't in it anymore. And that's a good realization too, because it just means it's time for a change. Your heart is taking you in a new direction, and you've got an amazing path emerging in front of you. So let me ask you a question that has changed my life so many times. What do you want? Are you done yet? Is it time to move in a new direction? Or is it simply time to take responsibility for your life? To realize you're in the exact place you're supposed to be and find the resolve you need to keep moving forward. If it's not time to make a change, that doesn't mean you must just accept feeling overwhelmed. What it means is that God is about to expand your capacity. Say, expand my capacity. It's either one or the other, right? Either you're supposed to move on, your heart is guiding you in a new direction, or you're supposed to get bigger right where you are. Put your hand on your heart and tell yourself, get bigger. That's where I was 20 years ago. I wasn't done. I wasn't supposed to move on. I was supposed to get bigger. My capacity was expanding, which brings me to point number 2 for beating overwhelm. Look for leverage. Look for leverage. In that short prayer session where I complained to God about how I couldn't handle it all, He showed me that, in fact, I was right. I couldn't handle it all. And if I was going to be given more responsibility to really do all the things in my heart, my capacity was going to have to increase. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I've always kind of prided myself on my ability to work hard. I was raised with a strong work ethic, so my personal capacity for work, especially when I was young, was huge. I like that feeling of getting something done quicker than anyone expected and delivering quality work in record time. How many hard workers are out there? Just wave at me on the camera. Say, look, you love to do hard work. You love to be recognized for how fast you can get stuff done. I'm one of you. I know. And that work ethic will carry you to a certain level of responsibility. But then you come to your limits. And trust me, even if your limits are greater than the next guy's limits, you still have limits. And if work ethic is all you have, then your level of impact will be limited to your individual capacity for work. That's why you're beginning to feel overwhelmed. You're running up against your individual capacity for work. There are only 24 hours in a day. And even if I can do more than most with an hour, I've still only got 24 hours. And chances are, if you're like me, the vision God has put in your heart is way bigger than the number of people you can reach by yourself in the hours that you've got. So you need some leverage. Talk back to me. Say, I need some leverage. I need some leverage. Do you know what a lever is? A lever is a tool that allows you to lift something much heavier than you can lift by your own effort. Some of you don't need to do less. Some of you need to find some leverage so you can do more with less effort. Say, I need some leverage. And this is fun because this is where you get to be creative. I left that prayer meeting with God in my 20s, renewed in my conviction that I was in the right place, that I just needed to expand my capacity. And I started looking for leverage. I started looking for people that I could invest in to do the work with me. At my job in the worship team and at my full-time job in the inner city ministry, even with my schoolwork, I started identifying others who were called to the same work, investing in them, raising them up. Some of them even helped me to write out manuals and procedures so we could get even more people involved. I had to learn how to inspire others. I had to learn how to empower them, to help them put their gifts to use. But before long, many of the things I had previously done on my own all functioned without me. My impact had expanded while my workload actually decreased. Somebody say, I need some leverage. Here are 3 questions that can help you find leverage. The first one is this: who can help? People are an amazing source of leverage, and it's okay to put them to work. In fact, it's a holy assignment to provide work for others. When you create work and release other people to do it, you're behaving like God, which is how you're supposed to behave. You are, after all, created in His image. When God made a beautiful garden in the book of Genesis and it needed to be tended, He didn't pull out a rake and a hose and get to work. He put man in the garden and he empowered man to tend to that garden. It not only accomplished the work that needed to be done, but it gave man purpose, and man was able to enjoy the fruit of his work. You can increase your capacity by leveraging people. Others have skills that you don't. Others have passions that you don't. The only way we all get to do the things that we're best at and live truly fulfilled is if we provide work for each other. We need to let other people work too. Say, I need to let people work. I need some leverage. That first question is like, what people can I leverage? What people can I put to work? The second question is this: how can I work smarter, not harder? When I was first married, we were a part of a setup teardown church. Anyone ever attended a church like that? Well, I get up at like 5 a.m. on Sundays, drive out to the parking lot where we park the vehicles, and me and my best bud, we'd drive the vehicles to the rehearsal studio, bring all the sound equipment down 3 flights of stairs, load it into the trucks, and head to the hotel. Then after church, we do it all in reverse. And, I was newly married. My wife came along once and was horrified at the amount of effort this took. Well, I agreed. In fact, I thought about how much easier it would be if she would grab something and help out. But she didn't. Instead, her first question was, how could you do this easier? And honestly, kind of infuriated me. I mean, I've been doing this for years. She comes along once, and rather than helping, she wants to question the way that we did it. But I calmed down and I listened to what she had to say. And you know what? In 10 minutes of thinking, we came up with a much better system. It saved us easily an hour of time every Sunday, and it saved my back from having to lift half of the heavy stuff up and down all those stairs every week. It's amazing to think that for years, we had just done the hard work without ever stopping to ask, how can we work smarter? Ask yourself that question. How can I work smarter, not harder? You'll be amazed at what you can find. Somebody say, I need some leverage. Well, here's the final question. What could money do to help? What could money do to help? Someone said, if you have a problem your money can solve, then you don't have a problem. Money is powerful leverage. If you have money, you can put your money to work for you. And I learned this from Rich Dad, that we need to all stop working for money and get our money working for us. If you have an opportunity to let money buy back your time, you should take it. Money isn't worth holding on to. It's there to use as leverage. Ask yourself, what can money do to help? But we'll have to talk about that more at a future time, because that's a whole nother topic all in itself. But here's the final thing I'll say about overwhelm. Sometimes all you need to conquer it is just to lay out a plan of attack. Take just a few minutes to yourself. Take what probably seems like hundreds of things you need to do running around in your head and start writing them down, putting the most urgent and important things on the top of your list. Chances are you'll already start to feel better, because it's not hundreds of urgent and important things. It's probably less than a dozen. Decide what order you're going to tackle them, and then just start going through them one at a time, top to bottom. It's like the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. As you start crossing them off your list one by one, you'll already start to feel better. And as soon as you feel some creative energy returning, look for leverage to help you. That way you'll expand your capacity as you go. Well, listen, if you've enjoyed what you're hearing today, make sure to click the subscribe button and turn on the bell so you get notified next Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be right back here live on the Harrison Wilder channel. For now, good night.